Now let's try some basic cross-site scripting using Portswigger's Web Security Academy. This is an excellent free online tool that will allow us to safely and legally try out some of our new knowledge. Let's look at this first lab for cross-site scripting. It says that this lab contains a simple reflected cross-site scripting vulnerability in the search functionality. To solve the lab, we must perform a cross-site scripting attack that calls the alert function. I think we can do that. One of the things that makes the Web Security Academy so great is that they set up websites that are vulnerable to specific stuff. So in this case, they have set up a blog website that is vulnerable to reflected cross-site scripting, and it's our job to find it. They told us the vulnerability was in the search functionality, so let's start out by testing out that functionality and seeing how it works. Let's just do a simple search for something like friends, and open up the inspect menu to see what we got. Looking at the inspect menu, we can see that our search term appears directly in this h1 tag. Now let's see if we can inject some script into that same spot. Voila! It was that easy. Let's see how our input is being rendered so we can learn more about why this is happening. Here you can see that the website used double quotes to close its own text, then rendered our input, and then used double quotes again to render the second half of its text. If I'm completely honest, I don't know why it would do this. The website is almost going out of its way to get our cross-site scripting to work easily here. If we look at our friend example from earlier, we can see that these double quotes don't exist. And if we wanted our script tag to render, we would probably have to escape this single quote in some way. By this I mean we would have to get around that single quote if the website didn't go out of its way to render our script input differently than it rendered our friend's input. We will see examples of this later in the series. This is considered a reflected cross-site scripting vulnerability because what we give to the web server is directly reflected back to us. In this next lab, we will see what a stored cross-site scripting vulnerability looks like. This time, the lab tells us that there's a stored cross-site scripting vulnerability, and to solve the lab, we must once again call the alert function, but this time through the comment functionality. At the top of this lab, we can see that they've removed the search functionality. Let's view a post so we can view the comment functionality. Using inspect always gives us a good idea of what's going on. Now that we can see Nick's comment here, we can see that this comment section is rendering comments very similarly to how our search results did in the last lab. I have a sneaking suspicion that we could just comment a script tag right in here. Let's try it out. So now we can see that it tells us that we solved the lab, but our comment hasn't popped up yet. Why is that? Well, if you remember, our comment was stored on that blog site, and we haven't opened that page yet. Watch what happens when we go back to the blog. Boom! Now our alert pops up. This is because when we told the web browser to go back to the blog page, it asked the web server for that HTML file. The web server had stored our comment on the HTML file and provided it when the browser asked for it. Now, anytime anyone calls for this page, they'll see our alert because we've stored it on the web server. It is stored cross-site scripting. If we look over here, we can see that where our normal comment would be, we've injected these script tags. And that's it for those two labs. Hopefully now you have a slightly better understanding of stored versus reflected cross-site scripting and the sorts of things we look for when we're trying to trigger cross-site scripting. In this case, the vulnerable web page made absolutely no effort to try to stop our attacks. In the rest of the series, it won't be quite so easy. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, and please share it with anyone you know who might be interested in this content.